This piece of Lisa is being brought to you by Mutual Security Credit Union. Find out more at mscu.com. So I have a daughter in college. I guess that makes me officially an empty nester, but not really, because our son graduated from college and he's living with us, which, by the way, keeps me company and I'm very happy about. I don't know that he's happy about it, but I'm very happy about it. But technically speaking, I think I'm an empty nester because he's going to be moving out in a couple of months, and then I really will be forlorn. But I will still be paying tuition because our daughter is a freshman in college. And times being what they are, I have looked at this, something called the FAFSA application, which is the acronym for financial aid. If you are lucky enough to not be familiar with this, I congratulate you and I salute you. If you are lucky enough to have aged out of this, maybe you had kids that years ago went to college and it's not your concern, but maybe you're concerned about grandchildren. Maybe you would just like to know what the average middle class family is now going through to try and pay for the cost of a higher education that we all keep being persuaded is what you need to get ahead in this world. Well, I want to tell you, I was in for such a shock, like such a shock. So this year, we had enough savings so our daughter was able to go without having to resort to college loans. But next year's another story. And so we have to look at the options. This is a time in which you can't get more than 1.5% on a CD if you go to a local bank for 3 years. Am I right? Have you looked at your options about getting money on interest? We have the lowest interest rates ever in terms of what we have to pay for mortgages, and the lowest interest rates ever in terms of what we receive on our money in the bank, right? I'm talking historic lows. So you would think that saddling the next generation of students with loans would be at the nominal interest rate, would be the lowest possible negligible interest rate right now, at this time in history. Well, if you would think that, you would be wrong. Because I'm going to tell you what it is right now, the rules. And by the way, Peter Ratson, who is a professional at helping people prepare for colleges, is coming on the show tomorrow, and we'll discuss this some more in detail. But I'm so incensed about it. I'm so discouraged about it. I wanted to share this with you. Because if there's anything that you can do about it, you ought to. You ought to. I'm not sure there's anything any of us can do about it. I want to tell you what the rules are. First of all, there are very, very, very small amounts of these famous Pell Grants. They're in the few $1,000s. They help. But the college tuition at Johns Hopkins University, the tuition, room, board, and tuition, was $56,000 this year. Julia's crying. She's crying out of empathy. $56,000? When our daughter was born 18 years ago, I guess we didn't look at the right tables because we never imagined that 1 year of college would cost $56,000, which we all know is about $100 pre-tax income, and doesn't include a book, a stitch of clothing, a trip home, any of the extraneous expenses that it costs to live. This is strictly room, board, and tuition. To pay for a ticket and hopefully a good education. But it's a ticket. Let's face it. That's what it is. It's a ticket. I hope it's a ticket to the good life. We'll see. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you what the rules are. If you get a subsidized federal direct loan, this is based on incredible need, like the poorest of the poor, then the interest rate for this year is 3.4%. And you have to start paying it back 6 months after the completion of studies. But the vast majority of loans are not that. They are unsubsidized federal direct loans. Would you like to know what the rate is? It's 6.8%. 6.8%. And it has to start to be paid back immediately after graduation. 6.8%. And I'll give you one more. If you're a parent and you don't want to saddle your kids with the debt, but you yourself are going to take out the debt in your name, do you know that student loans today are interest rate fixed at 7.9%? That's higher than the highest home equity loan. That is disgusting. Disgusting is the nice word for it. If I could be explicit, if I wasn't on a G-rated radio station, I would really let forth 7.9% interest rates on loans to take out for your kids' college education. And here's the kicker. The interest begins accruing after the day you borrow it. It doesn't begin accruing at the date of graduation. It begins accruing when they're actually in school. Actually in school. Is this not shocking to you? I just want to ask you this. You have to start repaying the loans 60 days after the loan is dispersed to you. Fall and spring have been paid, and you may defer payments up to 6 months after they complete their studies, but the interest at 7.9% has already accrued. Now, if you want to talk about the worst possible way in which we can be saddling our children, our next generation, with debt, and how grossly unfair it is that while the banks are paying out 1.5%, they are gouging from families close to 8% for student loans. I'd like to hear a defense of that. So I'm thinking about parenting and raising kids. You know, I've got two. They're both young adults now, and one is just starting college and the other is out. And if I had to do it over again, I have a son and I adore him. And he's very, very smart. He graduated his high school with the highest SAT and the lowest GPA. Okay? I love him dearly. Studying was never his thing. Bright boy, super, super bright. As he got older, his study skills actually got better. But I thought the light bulb would turn on when he went to college. And all these wonderful brains that I know he has would sort of become fabulous study skills. By the way, it's not the same thing. To be bright and do well on an SAT is a certain kind of bright, but it doesn't always correlate to studying. And he had a good time at college. He had a great time. Lots of parties. Great time. I don't know if he did what Julia did, which is write the answers on his arms before he went into the test. But I'm not saying he did that at all. He's not a cheater. But the point is that for the money that we were paying, I'm just going to be honest with you, for the money that we were paying in retrospect, we should have insisted that he do well enough to get into UConn, which, by the way, is not only a respectable school, it's a great school. And you need to have a BB plus average to get in there and good SATs. We should have put our foot down and we should have said, we have the money to send you to college, but the best investment we can give you, knowing who you are, not everybody else, but who you are, is to take the money and set it aside and spend half of a private school tuition on a public school education. UConn is half of every place else. It's half for in-staters. Go there, do the best you can, get the best GPA you can, learn what you can. And when you're done, the other half of the money that we would have spent on your college education will give you a head start in life. Maybe it will help you buy a small business, get a car, start a first apartment, help you feed you while you're working on commission for something you like, or while you're working as an intern for a field that you really like that won't pay for a while you're an apprentice. But we'll have that cushion for you, honey, because we're going to acknowledge that you're not going to become a doctor or a lawyer or something that requires you to get that straight A to get into grad school. If you do it, mazel tov, wonderful, we love you, great. But if you don't, we'll have a backup financial plan for you, instead of spending it all on a very prestigious university. And then at the end of the day, you'll still have that, whatever, that B minus, C plus average. That's perfectly fine, except not today. Because what they don't tell you today is to get a job, you need a good GPA. Did you know that? When we used to go to college, and Julia's nodding at me, and Julia, you're younger than I am. But when you went to college and you graduated, it was just enough to have a college degree. Am I right? You didn't need to have good grades. Nobody asked you for your job. You graduated college, and you graduated college. You were done. Done. They didn't even care if you majored in psychology, a non-major, or political science, my major, or another non-major, or something really important like engineering or math. Right? I mean, you graduated college. The world is so different now. If you are listening to me, and you are where I am, in the cusp of being a parent with kids that are just entering high school or in junior high school, heed my words of advice. Heed them. And look honestly at your own child and say to yourself, is this kid somebody who really is an academic, who might become a professional, who needs those great grades? And if so, shovel all the money you can at the finest education, because not only will they take advantage of it, but they will benefit from it because they will have that ticket to success for professional achievement. But if you're looking at your kid and you're thinking, my kid will be a great salesman, my kid will be a great electrician, my kid will be a great, bank officer, my kid will be a great self-starter, my kid wants to be a ski instructor, my kid loves football, I don't know what my kid's going to do. Take that money that you were going to spend on higher education and set aside a good portion of it and try and get the cheapest college education you can. And tell your kid it is important to get those A's and B's. Somebody is going to look over your shoulder, but make sure you have a nest. I should give lectures about this to people. I feel so strongly about this. Do you agree with me or not?
Yes.
Julia agrees with me. Common sense advice. But what do you think if you're listening to me right now and you've got a kid? Because I'm going to tell you, I spoke to a friend of mine this morning, and you know what she said to me? She said, when we were talking about it, and I said, don't send your kid to wherever, send your kid to UConn. And she said, how do I tell my kid? She's above it. You know, she lives here in Fairfield County, and all her friends are going to all these prestigious, expensive schools. And how do I tell my kid, especially when her brother is such a good student, and her brother is going everywhere, and her brother is getting everything paid for? And that's when I said, you make a deal. You tell her, I'm spending the same money on you. I would never spend less on you than your brother. That I won't do. I don't believe in that anyway. But I'm going to have a lot left over. I'm going to have nothing left over for him. When he wants to go to grad school, he's going to be about loans. When you want to do something else with your life, I'm going to have that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And I think that's a reasonable bargain. Don't you think that's a reasonable bargain? I want you to think about it. We're going to talk more about this with Peter Ratson tomorrow, because he's an expert in how to get the most out of the whole process, which is a maze and a specialty situation unto itself. But as I say, I was so naive, so stupid. And I was well-meaning, well-meaning, but still stupid. I could be well-meaning and smarter. I didn't have to be stupid. I was stupid. I looked at a reality that wasn't true. I looked at it through the eyes of wishful thinking, and I looked at it through the eyes of assuming that it would be worth it, which it wasn't. Especially now in this economy, it wasn't. The UConn degree, just as good and wonderful as any other degree out there. If you're not going to Harvard or Yale, who are we kidding? Come on. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, whatever. Just as good, wonderful, better. The UConn Honors Program, incredibly esteemed, beautiful. If your kid gets into that, I think they go with no tuition. It's unbelievable. And goodness knows our taxpayer dollars are going toward it anyway, so you might as well. You've actually been paying for it for a long time. To A Piece of Lisa. If you'd like to listen to the whole 2-hour show, please go to lisawexler.com, where all shows are archived. And do follow me on Twitter @Lisa Wexler. Thanks for listening.